Welcome. Welcome to the Living in Utah live question and answer session Thursday evening, 8 p.m. Mountain Time, 10 p.m. if you're joining us on the East Coast, or 7 p.m. for the Pacific Coast. As far as the weather goes, throughout the state of Utah, there has been a lot of rain. We have been getting the storms that came through San Francisco and LA. They are heading to Utah. They're already here and, have left a lot of snow and rain throughout the area. In northern Utah, on the valley floor, along the valley, along I-15 area, it's mostly been rain. In the mountains, though, snow. So great for our water situation for the upcoming summer. I'm assuming it's going to be warm during the summer. Did many people watch the Super Bowl? So I thought it was a great Super Bowl. It played out how I was imagining, or I was hoping the game would go. Very close competition. So Kevin Costner, been in the news media mostly for the ongoing divorce and him leaving Yellowstone, et cetera, but some new news on the Kevin Costner front. He is opening a film studio right here in the state of Utah. Yes, in St. George. Will be located in St. George. The article states that he was recently here filming Horizon and American Saga in St. George. He fell in love with the area and will be opening up Territory Film Studios near the St. George Airport. The campus is expected to include 70,000 square foot of sound stages, 51,000 square feet of production warehouses, and about 32,000 square feet of production offices. Sounds like a very, very large building. The studio will include a Costner-themed restaurant, and they will do tours at the studio. So exciting news. I imagine it's going to take some time, et cetera, to build. But Kevin Costner is spending some money in the state of Utah. That, great news. It's great to see. We've had a lot of industries in the state of Utah, have come here, et cetera. And it's nice to see the diversity that we're getting some different, industries coming to the state and with Kevin Costner. I'm not too sure what the latest is, but for a while there, they were looking at building like a mini Hollywood, is what they were referring to it as, up in the Ogden area, west of Ogden. I'm not too sure what the status of that is. It was something that was talked about a few years ago. I actually drove by the proposed location, and they had purchased, I don't remember what it was, 300 acres, 400 acres, something very, very large, but not too sure. But that was talked about a few years ago. All right, a couple questions this evening. Are there new construction happenings in Davis County, especially more west, Clinton, Syracuse? Yes, 100%. Yep. Building all the time. Majority of the building in Utah, look at a map, Google Maps, west of I-15. To the east side of I-15, there's not a lot of land to put new home developments in. Now, there are some going in. There are exceptions to the rule. They're still building up the mountainside. But in general, majority of the new home developments will be on the west side of the freeway. And that pretty much right up and down. The only exception to that rule would be, when you get further up towards maybe Brigham City and Tree Mountain area. But when from Ogden down to Provo, predominantly most of the building is west of the freeway. So, oh, do I expect interest rates to go down anytime soon? I don't. So, I did pick up a new mug from Amazon, the F-35 Lightning, in honor of Hill Air Force Base. F-35s are stationed here at Hill Air Force Base. So I thought it would be kind of a cool mug to get. Interest rates, the official word from the Federal Reserve, the latest word was they are holding steady with the news. And this, the last news that I saw from the Federal Reserve was about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and they were holding steady. No increases, no decreases. Of course, rates, the Fed fund rate has not gone up probably in the last 6 months. Now, mortgage rates are tied to the 30-year Treasury note. So it's a little bit different. And I know that's gone up and down. It fluctuates. I know sometimes people see the federal rate but they'll see interest rates going up and down, and that's normal. But the Federal Reserve has stated that they are not anticipating any movement at the current time. Well, we had a little bit of bad news this week. Inflation numbers were higher than what they expected. So, but can you take just 1 month's inflation data? Well, no, Federal Reserve will look at that. Definitely we'll look at that. And their goal was to bring inflation down. So it's not a positive sign seeing inflation numbers go up, because if we see inflation numbers go up next month and the following month, the Fed may have to act upon that and raise interest rates higher. So the consensus from the Federal Reserve, et cetera, they don't anticipate we're going to see the 3% rates again. So that's the official word. And I kind of agree with that. The reason we went so low was because we shut our economy down. The government had to do something to try to stir some business up, and they just kept dropping the rates. So now if we have something like that happen again, where we're shutting our economy down, another COVID type of situation, who knows what's on the horizon? I mean, ask me 4 years ago, we would have something like COVID, and I would have said no, but so who knows what will happen. But that's one of the reasons that we went so low. But what I'm seeing in the market right now, a lot of people, the market is picking up in the state of Utah. I can only speak probably for the state of Utah and some other states that I talked to some people in. The general consensus is the market is pretty strong. It's staying steady. I'm seeing more people now jump into the market, especially people who were shopping during the COVID time period. They wanted to buy a house so bad back then, but a lot of deals were cash only deals, and a lot of things were going 25, 50, 75,000 above asking. And I'm talking about a $500,000 home. Seven-figure homes were going 100, 200,000 above asking. And the average home shopper, most home shoppers in general, they just didn't have that extra money to come out of pocket, 25, 50,000 on top of moving costs, deposits, furniture, et cetera. I mean, it was a lot of money to come up with, and a lot of people got out of the market and they continued renting. Some of those individuals now I'm seeing come into the market. My phone's ringing from people that I talked to 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Some of those people I helped back then. And their consensus, I always ask this same question. Their consensus is, we like where pricing is right now. There's more inventory. We're not in this huge bidding war coming above asking price. And they're willing to take the interest rate, knowing that they're locking in that home price. So they're buying it at that rate. But the interest rate, you're not necessarily locking it in. You are locking your interest rate in, but you are not stuck with that interest rate for the whole 30-year loan or 15-year loan, whatever someone takes out. And they're going to play the numbers. If the rates come down, they'll do a refinance. If the rates go up, then they'll stay where they're at and say, wow, I'm glad I got in at X rate. But if it does go lower, they'll do a refinance. And that's, there's no, I get the question all the time, is there a perfect time to purchase a home? And I don't think there is a perfect time to purchase a home. There's no perfect situation. I mean, some people look back and goes, I wish I would have bought something during COVID. Well, it was very, very difficult. Multiple offer situations. I showed up at homes where people were in line to view the home. All cash offers, above asking price. It was tough to purchase a home during those times. Then we take times like the crash of 2008, 2009. Yeah, home prices went down significantly in some areas like Las Vegas and Phoenix. But what was tough in many markets, it was hard to get financing. Banks were not interested in financing deals, very often. They were nervous. Would it drop further and further and further? So it was hard to get loans. They just weren't giving loans out. So there's always challenges in every market. Hope I answered your question on interest rates. Sometimes I go off on a little tangent, but what are your views on the housing market for Utah right now? Is it a right time to purchase a home? I guess I just answered that. I don't know if there is a right time to purchase a home or 100% right time. I mean, we would love to have the prices from 2008 or 2010, but the interest rates of 2022, that'd be great. But to mar those two things together usually doesn't happen. If interest rates, let's just say interest rates drop to 3%, 4%, that's going to cause huge demand for housing. And that's going to cause prices to go up, multiple offers, above asking price situations. But when we're talking about housing, living in the United States is the best place around the world to own a home. There are many countries, Canada, England. There is no fixed rate mortgage for 30 years. Does not happen. Does not happen. Now, places like England, they do have fixed rate mortgages, but it's for a short period of time, maybe 3 years, 5 years. And then when that time period comes, you have to redo the loan or however they do it at the new interest rate, which could be higher. It could be lower. But in the United States, it's the only country that I'm aware of where you sign that loan for 7%. That is guaranteed, that interest rate for 30 years. And on top of that, you have the ability, if the rate does go down to 3%, 4%, you can refinance to a lower amount. This is the only country I am aware of that has a situation like that. In places like Canada and in the UK, in England, a lot of people are on variable rates. And they'll go up and down, up and down. And over the last, year and a half, I know in England, I read a report that the average mortgage payment went up about $450 because the interest rates had changed. Well, in the United States, whatever your mortgage payment was 2 years ago, say it was $2,000. Well, today it's still $2,000 if you have a fixed rate mortgage. So, that's the good news about the housing market. In the United States, we have the best, I believe, the best opportunity to purchase homes and to be with a fixed cost. Will the election have any effect on housing market this year? I don't know. That's a good question. So the former president, Mr. Donald Trump, has been touting that the stock market is at highs, and you look at the Nasdaq and S&P 500. Yes, we are setting new highs, and he is putting his name on that deal, saying that because the possibility of him getting back into office is causing the stock market to go up. So, but I don't think there will be a big effect on the housing market. What changes the housing market in housing is local, is supply and demand. So back to your question on purchasing a home. In general, my rule on purchasing a home, I think, and let's just talk about the United States. The best places to purchase a home is in areas that have growth going on or the potential of growth going on. And you take California, people who bought homes in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and California was just growing and growing and growing. And look what those home values are worth now. Utah has experienced that also. But if you're in a state at where people are leaving, not a good place to buy a home, because if those numbers continue, usually the home prices will go down. So you'll purchase it and the home prices will go down, as opposed to a state that is growing. My fear for the state of Utah is the Winter Olympics. An announcement will be made this summer on who gets the Winter Olympics for 2030 and 2034. Utah is the preferred destination from the IOC. This came from the IOC. Utah is the preferred destination for 2034. So the people in Utah, the lawmakers in Utah, are expecting an announcement that the Winter Olympics will come here. Well, that is actually good news and bad news on the housing market. I noticed a huge increase in demand for housing in Utah after 2002 when we had the Winter Olympics. People came here, vacationed here, watched the Olympics, et cetera, said, hey, it's not a bad place. Maybe I'll buy a vacation home there. And some people, a job, they work for XYZ company and there was an opening in Utah and they're like, hey, I was there and I liked it. It met my needs, and they took that job offer and moved here. It brought exposure to the state. Now with that, if we get the Olympics in 2034, it's going to be even more exposure, more people wanting to move to the state of Utah, et cetera, home prices going up. I mean, I think that we might get into a situation where Utah could possibly be like California, where it's very unaffordable to own a home. So that's my worry. I like the Olympics coming to the state of Utah, but housing market a little different. All right, new construction, existing construction. Good question. Pros and cons on both. I mean, I like both. New construction. Typically, you've got the new construction is everything is new. Okay, the cons. Let's talk about the cons. Sometimes you'll find that the property sizes are smaller because they're building smaller homes on smaller lots as opposed to existing homes. And that's a disadvantage for some people. If you have a family, kids want to play in the yard, in the backyard, sometimes you don't have as much room. In Utah, homes, best way to frame this, homes with Um, the availability to park camper trailer, boat, UTV, like on the side of your house, in the backyard, are very desirable. Many people in the state of Utah own those type of toys, and they like to park them at their own place. So homes and with new construction, sometimes it's tough. Depends where you're buying new construction, but sometimes it's tough to get a lot big enough to be able to like park a camper trailer on the side of your house. Put some concrete or gravel camper trailer. My backyard's the same way. I've got, 40 or 50 foot. I could park a big Class A motorhome in my backyard. Very desirable. So it's at your own house. You don't have to pay storage fees, et cetera, et cetera. So outdoor recreation is very big in the state of Utah and demand. So sometimes with new construction, the smaller lot sizes, it's a little tougher. So, a little bit of a con there, and depend. Maybe you don't want to own any of those items. That's okay. The other thing is a lot of homes in the state of Utah come with basements. Back to the thing about parking toys, etc. Some of the new home communities are HOA communities, and they have a lot of restrictions. So I actually talked to a guy that owns a tool truck franchise, and he's complaining that he can't park his tool truck at his house because it's in an HOA, and he has to park it at a storage unit, and he's constantly worried about the security. So he would like to get out of an HOA. A lot of homes in the state of Utah are built with basements. Very popular, gives you some extra square footage. Typically, with new construction, the basements are unfinished. Now you can ask a builder to finish the basement for an additional cost, but typically in the purchase price, as a general rule, most basements are unfinished. Well, the cost to finish a basement can be, I've seen bids for $90,000, $100,000. I've seen bids for $50,000. Depends what you're putting in the basement. If it's basic, just some rooms, maybe a family room, a bedroom or two, not as expensive as if you want to put a kitchen, you want to put a bathroom, laundry facilities, et cetera, et cetera. Home theater system in a basement. It really adds to the cost. Some people just don't have the money to buy a new home, spend $80,000, $100,000 finishing the basement, spend another $30,000 to $50,000 putting landscaping in. Many times the new construction does not come with landscaping. Sometimes it comes with landscaping just in the front. Fencing, sprinkler systems, grass, sod becomes expensive. So for some individuals, they just don't have the extra money to purchase the home and do all the modifications they want to the home. Where with an existing home, sometimes that is done. Sometimes with an existing home, the basements are not complete. But so a little bit of pros and cons. So hope that helps you a little bit. You're welcome. Yeah, there's pros and cons with new and existing, et cetera, et cetera. So the one thing is to get a list on what you want in the home. Like if you want the ability to park a camper trailer on the side of the home, et cetera, et cetera. Do you need like the finished basement? Is your family big enough, or that you need it, right now? Those extra rooms, et cetera. Or for some people, it's home offices. I've seen many basements as home offices, really nice private areas, because many people work from home. I understand our water rights are assigned, but how is it measured? For example, if we bought 10 acres that come with X water rights, is it measured? If a well is installed, does the state put a meter? So you get water shares, and um, the water shares will determine your water ability. The more shares you have, the more water ability you have. And you have to have so many shares, so many water shares to like operate a house, et cetera, et cetera. So usually if you are buying 10 acres, you would have plenty of water shares. You may not have enough water shares if you planned on subdividing that 10 acres into half acre lots or something. That's where you really run into some of the issues, is if you were to, subdivide that land at some point. How exactly does aspect of water rights work? I guess I'm a little bit lost on that question. Um, it does get a little bit complicated because there is land for sale. And this is one of the things that has popped up from time to time. People go, oh, really good deal on some land. And this actually happened up in the Park City area. A lot of people looked at this land. Really good deal, but it came with no water shares. So you're going to have to purchase water shares off somebody else. And without the water shares, that land could not be, you couldn't use it for development. And a lot of people looked at that land to um, try to get it subdivided and put multiple homes on the property. But it can be difficult. But you can also purchase water shares from people. Yeah, there's different things. Same with wetland. You can do like on wetlands. You can have wetland property, and there are people that will trade you, et cetera, et cetera. What are the pros and cons of concessions for a seller? Might be a little bit lost on that question. What are the pros and cons of concessions for a seller? I guess I'm a little lost on the question. Just wondering how my water use is measured. Now that's going to depend per county regulation. I have seen areas where water is metered, and I have seen areas where water is not metered. So, but I would almost guess areas where water is not metered, you may prepare for the future that it may be metered at some point. So, it's actually happening right now with secondary water. So, in a lot of neighborhoods, we have what they call secondary water. It's water that comes from the mountains. It's unfiltered, it's untreated, comes to your house, comes to my house. So, I have two water supplies. One, they call it secondary water, one, which is your drinking water, your culinary water. So, your culinary water is what comes into the house. You take your showers, drink out of the tap with it. Secondary water is to water the yard. Well, at one time, the secondary water was just, unmetered, use whatever. There was no restrictions. And then restrictions came where you couldn't water during the daytime. Now they're going through neighborhoods putting meters on, and they say you have X amount of gallons per month. If you exceed that, and it's like, I don't know, the first time is a warning, the second time is a fine, the third time, or at some point, they'll put a lock on that meter and you'll have no secondary water. So things are changing. How's the rental market in Utah? Well, the rental market is very good. It is, there is availability. Some people feel the prices are high. The rental prices are high. Where where it's a little bit tougher, there are many apartments. So if you're looking for an apartment, plenty of apartments to choose from. Single family homes is a tougher market, especially when you're getting up towards, say, the 4 bedroom home, 4 bedroom, 2 bath, a little tougher to find than 3 bedroom. Of course, you can always find 6, 7 bedrooms, bigger homes, 4, 5,000 square foot homes at a fairly costly price. But in general, single family homes are in shorter supply. Throughout COVID, many landlords got out of the business. The federal government came along and said, if you're affected by COVID, you don't have to pay rent. So there were private landlords, individual people who only own maybe one home, maybe two homes as rentals, and they were receiving no payments sometimes. And when that restriction ended, many landlords said, I'm going to sell the property. It's my property, but the government allowed people to not pay rent. So that's one of the reasons we have shortages on single family homes. Oh, when a buyer wants concessions during an offer. Okay. So I guess there is no pro for a seller that I can think of, because it's the seller's going to pay for those concessions. So in general, it's a sticky subject when we're talking concessions for a buyer, because some sellers feel, I put X product on the market and I want X amount of dollars. And then they come to find out that they're paying closing costs or paying this or paying that. And some sellers, this is what I hear from sellers, and they're correct. Why am I paying the buyer's closing costs? That's their bill. That is their bill. Why do I have to pay it? So it rubs some sellers the wrong way. And I've had sellers, and I've seen sellers that literally will not do a deal just because they feel that is somebody else's bill and they are paying for it. So it's some sellers are okay with it. Some sellers just, it just rubs them the wrong way. So, and it's very hard being a listing agent when you have to go to a seller and say, would you please pay for this and please pay for that? And the comments, I mean, it's X-rated language sometimes. So, and I've had those conversations, but I'm like, well, I have to ask you because that's how the offer got submitted. So, and sometimes offers will get rejected just purely on that. I've seen it many times. They're crazy. They'll take that offer and they'll choose another offer just out of principle because they just don't feel they should pay some buyer concessions. But it goes both ways. When we were during the COVID time period, buyer concessions are almost non-existent. Very, very rare. So repairs weren't happening. You could submit a repair request and the sellers are like, nope, next seller. I'll take the next seller, because they had multiple offers on the property. So back on the market went, or they called the next person. So it is tricky. It is tricky. Sometimes everybody does things different. The way I think the best way is you try to get a feel for what your chances are with a seller with a particular offer, the way it is made before it is written. That's my preferred method to kind of scope out, say, hey, this is what we're thinking. We're thinking this way, like this. And if it comes back from the agent, from the seller's agent and they say, Mike, absolutely no way would they do that, then maybe relook at the offer before you submit it officially. So that's one way to handle it. Any more questions this evening? I'm going to call it a night. Appreciate everybody who joined. Thank you very much.